have landed from Wuhan city in China. This has been confirmed by the authorities here. Let's confirm that once again, Desiree, 100 and...
Is the number that we are raising, is the we are giving you, is the number that excludes the flight crew.
Okay, thank you so much.
So that is 147. We're just speaking now to Popo, who is the spokesperson for the Department of Health. Officially, how many people are on that aircraft?
We have been informed that it's 146 South Africans, excluding the crew members.
All right, thank you very much. 146, the official number, Desiree. Speaking to the Department of Health, they were confirming exactly how many of the South Africans are on that flight. The moment has arrived, Desiree, and with much anticipation, of course, you can imagine that the South Africans who are on board that aircraft are finally touching down. Lots of fears have gripped their minds over the past few weeks. You'd know that some of them who have been on board or have been in Wuhan city have been under lockdown there for over a month. All right, confirmation, breaking news here on the SABC News channel. The aircraft that evacuated, what we know now is 100.
The crew, that excludes the crew. So it's 114, 18 crew members, 14 medical, and 3 embassy staff. 114 plus 18 crew members plus 14 medical staff, including 3 embassy staff.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, some details there from authorities. Once again, if you've just joined us here on the SABC News channel, live pictures of the aircraft that went to evacuate the South Africans from Wuhan city in China. The moment certainly has arrived for them. Quite a lot, Desiree, that still needs to happen before they disembark from that aircraft. We understand they will once again be tested, and the necessary precautions would need to be done before they can disembark from there. All right. You would recall, of course, that the South African government had indicated that it was prioritizing the South Africans in Wuhan city. That is the area, of course, where the virus, the coronavirus, was first detected. And South Africa saying there was no plans in place at this stage to have its citizens evacuated from any other parts of the areas that may be deemed high risk. But certainly I think today this one would be a clear demonstration of the South African government's willingness to ensure that those in some of the most risky areas at their Desiree are going to make it home. All right, you can see there the aircraft itself, South African Airways flight. You'd recall, Desiree, there had been a lot of speculation about whether it would be a military aircraft. South African Airways embarking on this journey, a mammoth task indeed. They'd been at the epicenter of this coronavirus, only on the ground for 8 hours. And Desiree, from what was happening in that aircraft before they left Wuhan city, there was was a lot of precautions that had been taken. You have a look there, you would see some on the tarmac. On the runway itself, there are about 4 men who are walking there in white suits, and obviously that's part of the protective gear that the South African government has ensured that those who are participating in this evacuation process, and now the ones who are heading to the aircraft, have all that protective gear on. Once again, you'll see 4 men there walking towards the aircraft, and a lot, not many personnel allowed near that aircraft, and I'm sure there are processes now that are going to follow to ensure that the necessary safety precautions are taken before they disembark from that aircraft. These are live pictures from the international airport here in Polokwane. Breaking news: the aircraft that left South Africa to evacuate its citizens from Wuhan city in China has landed, and now from this point the necessary precautions that I speak of, Desiree, speak about the tests that would need to be done, some screening that will need to be done on board that aircraft first before they disembark. And I cannot begin to imagine, Desiree, I mean, after being under lockdown for more than a month, you finally arrive on home soil, and one can certainly not paint a picture at this point unless you speak to those affected South Africans, not infected but affected, in the sense that they were the ones at the epicenter of where this virus had broke out, and their request to be brought home is finally being fulfilled here today. Many questions about when it was going to happen. Remember, President Cyril Ramaphosa had indicated this should happen over 7 to 10 days, and here it is now, the South African Airways flight from Wuhan city in China. That evacuation finally coming to an end now, but it doesn't just end here. 21 days they will move from here and be taken to the ranch resort, which is about 21 kilometers away from the airport. 21 days quarantine there, the incubation period 14 days, and the remainder of that, of course, all but precautions. We must stress or overemphasize, Desiree, that according to the South African government, this aircraft which has landed here is carrying South Africans who are healthy, and they're saying that none of the South Africans on board this aircraft have tested positive for the coronavirus or have gone to hospital with symptoms associated with the coronavirus.
Just in terms of protocols.
The spokesperson once again. Desiree, just hold on for a second. If I could just bring in the spokesperson of the health department. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Let's get more clarification on the total number that you spoke about.
Well, the total number is 114 South African nationals, 18 crew members, 14 crew members and 18 medical staff. The total, I still have to work out the total, but 3 embassy members as well. So we did have late cancellation and some late confirmations.
Popo, I mean, you guys have been working on this for a very long time, and I'm sure right now the South African government is quite pleased that the aircraft has finally landed.
It is a moment of pride for South Africans. At least we prevailed. We are bringing our citizens back home, and no one who's in that flight is forced to come back. They all wanted to come back, and government had to reach out.
So again, the process from here, they will disembark. They will be screened before they leave the aircraft. Talk us through that process.
Yes, they will be screened on arrival. There will be no contact with airport staff. From the flight, the going straight into the buses, and on site there are medical staff already, and they will be checked and taken to their rooms.
All right, thank you very much indeed for your time. A moment of pride as described by the health department that finally this, the evacuation that had been planned, I understand it was, Desiree, a mammoth task to have this mission completed. There were many things logistically that the South African government had to comply with in China before this mission could even get off the ground here from South Africa and head to Wuhan City and be there for a few hours and then leave Wuhan City and return to South Africa. Desiree, you were trying to engage with me there. Please proceed.
Protocols required just in terms of how far you are allowed to be from the aircraft.
Well, Desiree, we are at the viewing deck at the international airport here in Polokwane. This is as far as we can get. I must say that the South African government had tried to arrange for us to get a bit closer, but I think it's much better off here where we are. You would see also, if my colleague Llewellyn could zoom in there a bit, you'd see underneath the aircraft there some of the personnel who have gone towards the aircraft in the white protective gear there, which is a clear indication that all the necessary procedures have been taken by the South African government to ensure that all the tests are done, screening is done before they disembark from that aircraft. So at that moment, all the planning and the logistical, I don't want to say nightmare that the South African government has been through, but certainly at this point it could be a moment of pride, and I cannot begin to imagine the relief of those South Africans that are on board that aircraft, many of them for some time now calling for the government to act and saying they want to come. Part of those who are on that aircraft are a group of South African students who had graduated from the university in Hubei province. So they've already graduated. I've seen some of their graduation certificates. They won't be going back to China, but a moment of pride for them. And I think, the plans that the South African government had put in place, and, I understand around the clock working to try and ensure that it does come to fruition. That's exactly it. It all emanates to what we're seeing here today. In case you've just joined us on the channel, live pictures from the international airport in Polokwane as the South Africans evacuated from Wuhan City in China have finally touched down on South African soil.
Colleagues from other media as to how much they've been given as access, but we do know that they themselves are not allowed.
Desiree, just a few moments ago we had been speaking to the Department of Health's spokesperson, Popo Maja, and he was just explaining to us that it's going to take a little bit of a while before they disembark from that aircraft. I think everyone is watching very closely about what procedure the authorities will take now that this aircraft has landed here.
Griselda, I think we need to re-emphasize
also there.
Yeah. Just that we need to re-emphasize that the people, the entire component of people on the plane are healthy people.
Well, that's right, absolutely, Desiree. You can obviously understand there had been some panic from some quarters about the health condition of those who are returning to the country. Government has overemphasized that all those South Africans on board that flight are healthy. And you would recall there would have been a necessary procedure that would be followed even before they got on that aircraft. They had been screened before they got on the aircraft to ensure that none of them had symptoms related to the coronavirus. If any of them had shown any of those signs, they would have, of course, been referred together with the agreement South Africa has with the Chinese on what would happen next. But we can certainly say at this time all information that has been communicated by the South African government indicates that every single one of those individuals who is on that aircraft is healthy. They do not at this stage have any symptoms related to the coronavirus. And Desiree, the South African government would obviously need to take all the necessary precautions, because you don't want to deal with a situation where, with South Africa standing with 24 confirmed cases of the coronavirus at this stage, containment would be very key to what happens. The South African government cannot afford a spread of the coronavirus, so all the necessary precautions at this stage seem to have been taken to ensure that there isn't any criticism of what has been done here. I think much of the focus right now is very much on the fact that it's been a successful mission to begin with, to get those South Africans out of there. Can you imagine the kind of nightmare it would be to have you repatriate your citizens from one of those high-risk areas? A lot of logistical issues being taken into account. We kept on asking as the media when it was going to happen. So all of that now culminating in this arrival. I mean, I managed to see some of the social media posts just before they took off from Wuhan City, and Desiree, I can certainly tell you that the social space that they had been given is quite far apart from each other. Others also wearing some protective gear, and the evacuation team also in the white gear that you see those men there just underneath the aircraft wearing. So South Africa certainly cannot afford a situation where its citizens who are arriving, there may be any suspicion that they could be ill or could have symptoms of the coronavirus. So a lot of work, I guess, still needs to be done from here. They will, of course, head to the ranch resort, where there's another medical team there, Desiree, which will also go through the very same procedure. You know, that entire area has been under lockdown. I'm sure you will speak to my colleague Sophie Mukwena in just a short while. She is stationed there. So we'll try to bring it to you right from the airport en route to the ranch resort. And once they get behind those gates, that's it, Desiree. That is a no-go area, and the media or anyone else is not allowed in that space. You would know, of course, they are not allowed to be with their families for the next 21 days. But much consolation, I can certainly tell you today that their loved ones are back in the country. Another 21 days for a precautionary, very important to stress, Desiree, precautionary behind or being isolated there for precautionary reasons. The South African government quite clear that it must follow all the necessary procedures. Also to allay a lot of the fears that others may have. You'd know that over the past week, our colleagues here in the province have been reporting about dissent in some quarters, but a re-emphasis, Desiree, from government that there's nothing to worry about. There's no need to panic. This is something that South Africa needs to demonstrate about keeping its citizens or caring about its citizens and going to evacuate them from where the coronavirus had first broken out.
On the other side of the aircraft, seeing that the staircase where those passengers are expected to disembark is on the other side, but that bus, Jeremy, on your visual.
All right, Desiree, 2 buses so far, I'm sure you will see. Those are the buses that will then take the South Africans to the ranch resort. And I've counted 2 buses now, Desiree, where these South Africans who have arrived will then disembark from that aircraft, and that is the bus then will go by road, of course, and head towards the ranch resort, which is about 21 kilometers away from the airport here in Polokwane. It will, of course, be escorted by the South African Police Service together with the South African National Defence Force. And we understand that there is a particular route that it will take. All right, we should expect them to disembark at Desiree. We'll bring you those pictures live here on the SABC News channel. Stay with us.
Within that fashion, because there are a few buses that are stationed on the outskirts of the runway, if I may put it in that way, and seeing that one of them has approached means that they will be taking the first batch of people. There is an arrangement that they have made to ensure that that property that they are inside is transporter, the aircraft and the bus will continue.
We can see that a lot of precautions are also taken
to understand that everything.
Let's bring in once again Popo Maja from the Health Department. He will explain a bit more about what's expected to happen now.
What's going to happen from now is that they are going to get into the buses. The crew that is on the bus is well protected. They are not going to be going to the quarantine. It is only the citizens and the medical staff on board, including the crew, that is going to go on quarantine. So right now they're going to get into the buses. As they arrive on the quarantine side, they will be checked and taken to their rooms. And the medical staff of the Defence Force is on site, and that is the place that the media is not going to be allowed to be in.
Help us understand when they tested or flight.
We're just going to ask Popo Maja whether they'll be tested. We know that they will be screened before they disembark.
Who's on site, who's on the plane, has been asked the questions that would actually detect as to whether they are still feeling okay. And from there, if there is anyone who's feeling unwell, that person on site will be isolated. But right now, all of them are okay, according to the reports that we get from our medical staff that is on board, that everybody who's on board is well.
There's about 2 buses. Are those buses?
All right, Desiree, just some additional information there from the spokesperson for the Department of Health, Popo Maja, who's of course telling us that exactly what I described, that you're going to have each and every one of them tested inside, or rather all of them will be screened just before they disembark from that aircraft. They will disembark possibly quite shortly, because you can see one of the buses there. Oh, there they go. Here they arrive, disembarking from the aircraft. The South Africans evacuated. Breaking news here on the SABC News channel. The South Africans who have arrived from Wuhan City in China, disembarking from that aircraft. You see some of them carrying some of the little that they've been allowed to carry on that aircraft. There were specific kilograms, you would understand, of luggage that they were allowed to carry. Breaking news now, disembarking from that aircraft. The South Africans evacuated from Wuhan City in China. So they are now being directed to the bus there. There you have it. Some of them are already making their way on to the bus. And I guess the journey begins, Desiree, to that 21 days under quarantine here outside Polokwane at the Ranch Resort. And I cannot imagine, Desiree, again, I have to overemphasize, you know, having worked on this particular issue for quite a while, and the distress that many of them have gone through. Some of them that we spoke to live on SABC News from Wuhan City. I cannot tell you what they could possibly be going through at this moment, that they've finally arrived in South Africa. So breaking news, the pictures you're seeing now live, South Africans who have arrived in the country from Wuhan City in China, where the coronavirus was first detected, are making their way into that bus. And that bus then will travel from here to the ranch resort, about 21 kilometers away from the international airport here in Polokwane. You'll also see there the men who are much closer to the aircraft in those white suits, protective gear. They, of course, that again, necessary precautions that have been taken by them, by the South African government, to ensure that even those who will be working very closely with those who have arrived also protect themselves.
Challenges, one being the distance from the airport, particularly one in
Desiree, I doubt I'm going to be able to hear you, so I will just continue at this stage. A mammoth task for the South African government to evacuate its citizens from Wuhan city in China. And, you know, Desiree, over the past few weeks, the pictures that we've seen come out from there, the experiences, I'm sure, which they will tell after the quarantine period has lapsed, is one that we've already highlighted here on SABC News, where some of the students who were attending some classes at the university in Hubei province, indicating they'd been under lockdown at that university, and basically they didn't have much interaction amongst each other. They'd been in their rooms for 24 hours a day, and at some point, you know, little complaints here and there about food, having access to food. So the South African government had also indicated that those who needed special medication, also during a period where you had the lockdown itself, was that they then would have sent that medication that was much needed by some of those who did not have access to crucial medication, and all the steps had basically been taken to ensure, through communication with the Chinese government, that all the necessities, emergency necessities that may have been needed by some of them, including some medication, would have been sent to them.
But of course, the virus was something that was unanticipated at this stage, and that is why I've seen this visual today to say the president himself said that we...
All right, the first batch, Desiree, of the South Africans disembarking from this aircraft. And they are, of course, now going to head to the ranch resort, which is not far from this particular airport, about 21 kilometers. I also just saw a tweet just a second ago from the Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize. That tweet, Desiree, I'm sure you'd be able to find it, him saying, touchdown, the plane with the repatriated South Africans has arrived at the Polokwane airport. And I think this had been a very mammoth task, especially as the head of the Interministerial Committee, who had on a number of occasions tried to ensure that there was transparent information about where the evacuation process itself was. So I'm sure lots of relief on his part, together with the rest of his team members in the Interministerial Committee, about exactly this moment coming when you have these South Africans now going to be transported for precautionary quarantine for 21 days. All right, Desiree, at some point we are probably going to have to move from this location. We'll probably try our level best to track the buses as they leave from here to the ranch resort. And I see some people also indicating, South Africans, that this is a moment of patriotic pride. I guess in the midst of, Desiree, all the adversity and the panic, one cannot but think that at this moment, the South African government has managed to pull this one off. Remember, there'd been a lot of speculation about whether this was even going to happen. We've not been given until very recently a date when they would arrive in the country, but when eventually it was announced, you could really see the kind of work that was put together to ensure that this mission is a success. I guess the next phase of that, of course, would be to ensure that that 21 days under which they'll be placed under quarantine, that all the necessary tests are being done. And remember, the Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, also indicating that the period from which the quarantine period will start is the actual moment that they arrive in South Africa, or even to the next day. And that will then subsequently mean that all those who are on this aircraft, the South African Airways aircraft, the South African government again indicating that all of them are healthy. You'll see some of those pictures there. Some bags on the side of that bus, one of the buses that will ferry them to the ranch resort. There were a certain amount of kilograms of baggage that they were only allowed to bring along with them. So you couldn't really just pack up everything, Desiree. I guess you pack what you really need and then leave. I know that it had been anticipated, had been indicated by the Minister of Health that they would arrive in South Africa before the end of the weekend. Here it is, live pictures if you've just joined us, live pictures from the international airport in Polokwane, where the South Africans who were evacuated from Wuhan City in China have finally arrived, making their way, some of them now, onto one of the buses there that will take them to the ranch resort. It's a pity I can't show you, Desiree, at this point, the throngs of media that are here. Huge interest in this particular story because, while the South African government will obviously need to deal with issues pertaining to the rising number of those who've contracted the coronavirus, that number standing at 24, much panic and worry about why South Africa would fetch its citizens in such a high-risk area and bring them back home. I overheard there, Desiree, one of the residents here in Polokwane basically say to us, if that was my child, would you not allow government to intervene? How would you feel if your child was in China? Those are just some of the sentiments that were shared by some of the people that we spoke to here in Polokwane. The second bus there, Desiree, to pick up the remaining South Africans who are still in the aircraft at the moment. It looks like a very coordinated, mission here. That is the second bus. And what I can certainly gauge from this, Desiree, is that what you will notice is that the buses did not all arrive at the same time. The first one came through. That one seems to be full. I suspect that it might take off now, or it might wait for the others. And once probably that door has been closed, the second one now, where the remainder of the South Africans will disembark from the aircraft, will then enter. Remember, the space that they have been given, not too closer to each other. That's all part of the precautionary measure in ensuring that there is that social space that is given between them
this historic moment of
in the event that at a later stage you might pick up some challenges. But all those challenges, it seems, have been put, the precautions to mitigate any of those challenges have been put in place to ensure that if it does arise, if it ever does arise that there is a challenge, someone might just pick up those symptoms while they've already arrived. There are plans that have been put in place to ensure that the necessary health care is there. So the second batch you see there of South Africans now disembarking from the aircraft. There are 3 buses here, Desiree. So the first one has moved a bit forward there, you will see. Now, on this one, it will start now to fill up the second batch of South Africans who are now disembarking, as you can see live. Just next to them there, the officials there donning those white protective suits, showing them some direction about where they need to go. And Desiree, I don't know if it would be correct to say, from where I am at the moment, I cannot begin, if I had been a fly on the wall or fly just next to that aircraft, about just to have a look at the expressions on their faces at the moment. A moment of relief, I can certainly tell you, judging from what we have been reporting about over the past couple of, and I can tell you, a moment of relief for their loved ones as well. Stay tuned to the SABC news channel. We'll also be speaking to some of those relatives who have been waiting for this moment. I received a telephone call from one of the family members this morning who said to me, Criselda, are they really arriving this morning? So you get a sense there, Desiree, of families who simply cannot wait, despite the fact that they will not be able to be reunited just yet. The fact that they're just back home is what is important for them at this stage. So we're really going to try our level best there, Desiree, to bring the latest to you live from the international airport here in Polokwane. All right, for some of our viewers, you can also stay tuned to our channel here. We'll get widespread reaction to this moment that we're all now witnessing live. Lots of reaction from families who will express that relief, certainly. All right, Desiree, I'm just trying to gauge at this point whether I shouldn't you shouldn't just let me go for a moment so that we are able to ensure that we're able to bring you the latest in terms of when those buses actually leave from here to the ranch resort. So in case you're just joining us here on the channel, live pictures from the international airport here. The third bus there again, you see. Desiree, just before you let me go, I know that I'm not able to hear you at the stage. Stay with me, the third bus. The distance between those buses as well. You can see that there's strict protocol here that has been put in place to ensure that they're kept far apart from each other. So right now, what we can, the third bus, all right, it seems like the third bus is heading towards what would be your right side of the wing of that aircraft.
Criselda, we can hear you perfectly.
And, all right, Desiree, you would see also some of the luggage that is being taken out of the aircraft there. The men who are taking it out, protective gear as well. I cannot overemphasize, you know, from what we've observed over the past couple of weeks, there was strong emphasis on the fact that everyone who will come into close proximity or contact with the South Africans, even though they are not ill or their health condition, according to the health department, is satisfactory. They're not ill, they are in good condition. According to what the health department has indicated, everyone who comes into close proximity to the aircraft, or those who are disembarking are supposed to take the necessary precautions. So that third aircraft going towards the back of the aircraft, so obviously the last batch will disembark. Okay, seems to be 4 buses now, Desiree, probably 2 that you're seeing there, another on the other side of the aircraft, I presume.
Griselda, I'm just wondering, when you say that the buses are stopping at different parts of the aircraft, is it not that protocol that was communicated earlier, that the crew would be using a different exit as opposed to the passengers?
All right, Desiree, unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave it there. Let's cross to my colleague Sophie Mokoena, who is outside the ranch resort where these buses will travel to, and Sophie will just give us a sense of what's currently taking place there at the moment. If you could also stay on our visuals here while you talk to Sophie.
Thank you, Desiree. Yes, indeed, we are standing here at R101, the route to Polokwane, where these South Africans will be using, and we know that they will be using their South African National Defence Force buses. We expect them to pass here any minute from now, as soon as all the formalities have been completed at the airport. As you know, that this is a military operation, and they are conducting this with precision, and they don't want to take any chances. But we expect them to pass here in an hour from now. You can see behind me here, I want to move out of the shot, that traffic has been controlled and people are being diverted to N1 rather than R101 because they are going to use this route. We know very well that in those buses, we have more than 120 South Africans. I guess when they arrived, when they landed this morning, they uttered these words, home, sweet home, being happy that they are back home. Even though there are challenges and questions about their arrival, they know very well that now they are home. The families in different provinces, I'm sure they are celebrating to see their loved ones back at home. Some emotional moment, because sometimes many thought this will not happen, but due to the fact that the South African government has the responsibility to evacuate its citizens when their lives are in danger. This danger can involve during war, during conflict, during coups. It can also involve during the breakout of diseases in the respective countries where they are. This operation is being done by the Defence Force because they have vast experience. We know that it was in 2014 when they did a similar operation, but the difference was that at that time they were repatriating the bodies. This time it was an evacuation of the South Africans who are alive, but their lives were perhaps in danger, or perhaps they were in distress after spending days and days in the quarantine in Wuhan, the epicenter of the virus, the coronavirus. But as we know now that China did what it could to ensure that they are able to control the disease. And also we know that in recent days, we saw on Monday, in fact, the president of China, Xi Jinping, visiting the epicenter of the virus, that is Wuhan, as a symbol that they are now managing this situation. We saw visuals from the national television, CCGTN, and also CCTV, indicating that the 3 hospitals that they built, where they accommodated some of people who were infected, but also they used the hospital to quarantine people, now have been deserted because patients have been released. We saw the medical staff celebrating after doing that job. Now we have a problem in Europe, where Europe is battling to manage this disease. A country like Italy on complete lockdown, Germany is working hard to manage this disease. The same with Great Britain. We know that Boris Johnson has announced measures to manage this. In the United States of America, a similar move, President Donald Trump making an announcement yesterday of the emergency to ensure that he's able to manage this disease. On the continent, we know that more African countries now are dealing with this problem. We know yesterday that Kenya, Ethiopia and Guinea made an announcement that they now have to deal with this problem. But we know that the CDC in Addis Ababa, the African Center for Diseases, is working very hard to coordinate the African strategy. The World Health Organization in the Sub-Sahara region, we know they are very hard at work to ensure that the Sub-Sahara region is able to manage this. We know that at some point in time we had to deal with the Ebola, and all hands on deck at the moment to ensure that we don't have a problem in South Africa with those cases that has been announced, particularly yesterday, the minister talking about 24 South Africans now who are identified as positive. But we know that government is working very hard to ensure that they get assisted. And for now, the continent is on standby to ensure that there is cooperation, particularly the SADC region. We know that ministers of health met in Tanzania to discuss the strategy. And as they arrive back home, I'm sure for them it's a great relief. We know these are young compatriots or South Africans who were in that country to exercise their rights, to have skills, but also to impart skills. It is people who can be a good asset to the country based on the skills that they have acquired in China, and now they are back home. One thing that we tend to forget is that we have many South Africans who are out of the country in different parts of the world who might be in a similar situation, and therefore isolating and also putting stigma to these South Africans will be unfair, because you also have some who decided to go out of the country to either look for greener pastures or to get training. I know that in Spain we have South Africans who are getting trained there. You have South Africans in Turkey, you have South Africans in Germany. Germany with South Africa, strong relations based on the automobile industry. There's traffic between South Africa and Germany dealing with this industry of automobile. In America, we have many South Africans there, some studying there, some have got businesses. On the continent, the South Africans are doing business on the continent. We know that some of our biggest companies, your Vodacom, your MTN, and many others are doing business on the continent, and therefore the world is one. Over to you, Desiree.
Well, there you have it. Breaking news here on the SABC News channel. The South Africans arriving from Wuhan in China have arrived. Criselda Lewis brought you all of that action. As the plane arrived, we saw it landing. We saw the disembarkment of both the passengers and the crew in about 3 buses. They're now en route to the quarantine area, and Sophie Mukwena is on the road watching that story. All efforts to bring you every aspect of the story as it unfolds. Stay with us here on SABC News on the agenda. My name is Desiree Chauke. Let's take a break.
airport here in Polokwane filled up to capacity. You would see there that all those who disembarked, the citizens who were evacuated from Wuhan, have now been placed in those buses. Let me count: 1, 2, 3, 4. Some of the buses have some of the luggage of those citizens who have just landed. So we're expecting in just about a short while, Desiree, that these buses will move from here and will take one of the routes here, and then we'll head towards the ranch resort, where there you have it. Some of those buses are leaving at the moment, and Desiree, we're really going to try. It is, in as much as we're really trying to bring this live to you, we're trying to move as fast as we can. We'll track this convoy as it leaves the international airport here in Polokwane. We'll really plead with the authorities to perhaps have our vehicle in front of these. And the reason why I think it's important for us to bring this moment to you, of course, you would know it has been a story that has dominated the headlines over the past couple of weeks since South Africa had announced it was going to evacuate its citizens from where the virus had first broken out. So we're expecting in just about a few moments for the buses to leave here. And it doesn't seem, Desiree, from where I'm standing, I'm really trying very hard. Let me just gauge here very quickly if this bus is going to stop behind the other. That's right. So what's happening now is that the buses are basically right behind each other. It will be a convoy from here to the ranch resort, about 21 kilometers away from here. We'll try to track that for you. So also the social distance that has been kept between these South Africans who arrived here. I managed to get a glimpse of that aircraft yesterday in a live video that was sent to me. You could see that they're not placed too close to each other. They have some of those masks on as well. So a momentous occasion, one would say, a mammoth task which is carried out by the South African government in ensuring that all those who wanted to come back. Remember, Desiree, at some point there were about 184 South Africans who indicated they wanted to come back to South Africa, but that number has since now dropped. And of course, these ones who are here now are those who indicated they want to come back home. Their fears of remaining in Wuhan were that they needed rather to be in South Africa, and until it sort of stabilizes, then they perhaps return to those countries. Amongst them, as I indicated, were South African students who had graduated from Hubei University now at the end of January. So they were not scheduled to remain in that country. So when the virus basically had broken out in that country, they then had to be locked down there together with everybody else. So the level of frustration, certainly on their part, was certainly something that made known to the South African government, that made known to the media. So eventually here today, they've arrived. And I guess a lot would need to be dealt with in terms of the stigma, Desiree. I'm sure you've heard from some quarters in the country some unhappiness about them coming back from Wuhan, of them coming to spend 21 days in isolation at this ranch, but government has really gone out of its way to allay fears that every single one of these South Africans as well, I mean, the precautions that they went through just to ensure that they're able to carry this out with precision is, I think, is certainly something that can be commended on this part. We've been on this route for quite some time now in engaging with government on exactly what is happening, and I'm sure one of the other individuals that will be very pleased with what has happened here, I alluded earlier on to the tweet by the Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, but one of the other individuals certainly will be the Commander-in-Chief, President Cyril Ramaphosa, because you would recall when he sent off the team, a team of volunteers who were going to evacuate the South Africans from Wuhan City in China, basically he had wished them well and basically painted a picture of a South African National Defence Force that was not just there to protect the country, but was also willing to participate in developmental projects. So this would fall under that category, in that what they clearly have demonstrated, these volunteers, is a certain certain level of patriotism in saying that they would be the ones to put their heads on the block and go to a place considered very high risk to evacuate these South Africans from that particular area. I think a lot of fears had also been allayed when the president of China, Xi Jinping, had visited Wuhan city, which gave an indication that the Chinese government was quite comfortable with sending the president there. He had visited some of the affected people in hospitals, and that gave an indication perhaps that somewhat the Chinese government believes that it has the situation under control. That was where, of course, the virus itself had first been detected. So for South Africa now to have successfully, over a short period of time, evacuated its citizens from Wuhan city, it certainly is something that can be applauded. But the next step for that, which I think the health department would certainly need to have its hands on, is to ensure that all the necessary tests are done to ensure that no one may have picked up the virus just hours perhaps before they had left that city. I don't really want to cause panic pertaining to that, because the South African government says, as far as it's concerned, all the people in these buses now, they're satisfied with their health condition. Desiree, I'm going to step out of shot once again. We're waiting for these buses to leave. I'm trying to negotiate quite a lot here with the authorities to have our vehicle in front of that convoy. Whether I'll succeed, you'll certainly know once you see those visuals on air. But breaking news now is that these buses, which of course are ferrying these South Africans to the quarantine zone, they're going to leave any time from now. Desiree, I'm going to hand it back to you, but we'll stay on these visuals. Allow me, please, to go and negotiate some space with our authorities on how perhaps we'll be able to give you those visuals as we proceed with that convoy to the ranch resort where they'll be quarantined for 21 days. We'll stay on these visuals, Desiree.
It's no problem. As long as we're the distance is not so we're still safe. They are loading the last one.
Griselda, while we have you on the line, our colleague Sophie was reporting that some roads, there might be some road closures in Polokwane as this group of people try to make their way to the quarantine zone. Do we have any detail there?
Desiree, no details from where I am standing. My colleague Sophie Mokoena and I are at different vantage points, so I guess you'll see all of that once we bring you live as the convoy itself proceeds from here. What I have seen is some traffic police, which will of course lead this convoy to the ranch resort. And what I can certainly tell you is that of course there would need to be a route that is set aside specifically for them to be able to pass. So from where I'm standing at the airport, I don't have any visual access to what is happening outside it. I'd be able to best give you an answer to that, Desiree, once we leave this particular vantage point.
All right, we're going to take it back now from our colleague Griselda Lewis. The breaking story there that all three buses about to start making their way to the official quarantine zone at the ranch, and we'll be following that story and try to make every effort to bring you every aspect of that trip as far as we are able to. Stay with us here on SABC News for that. But another story that's just come up, Eskom giving an update.
Yes, darling, I think stay with me, dear. Stay with me, don't drop the line.
I want to get those other ones to come outside so that they can move everything.
Yes. Can we talk to them, man, about being in front there? Yeah.
Yeah, my operation ends here.
Okay.
But the movement,
Lebu, are you still on our visuals? No, not just yet. They're going to stay on for a little bit longer. I'll let you know. Few more minutes. Okay. Oh.
That vehicle there must move also. It's very close to the road.
Oh, which one? Our one? Hi, Sisi, I'm good. How are you? Finally. Okay, Ratamai, Akirintate, we are going to be in the front of that thing. Yes, very well. How are you, my love? Good.
How are you? How are you, darling? What's up, Corona?
Following. Piwe.
Yeah?
Piwe. Angeke in front. Amaphoyisa ngithi azothi before kancinci sithi thina kancane emuva.
Ngizolandela wena.
Landela la. It's perfect, yes. It's perfect. It's not even so. There's nothing. This is just to stabilize it. I fell down the stairs.
What are you doing?
Just walking. Okay, come on. The one driving? No. Oh.
Oh, they said in the port.
Using the route R101. We expect them to be here in a minute. As you can see behind me, you have the security and traffic being diverted to N1. But to talk to us, we have a number of South Africans who are really patriotic, who are here waiting to see the buses going through this route. I just want to talk to these little ones. Yeah? Litloetsang
re tlile ho bona
litlo bona eng
dibese ga di feta
dibese tsang
tsa batho ba corona
a se batho ba corona. These are South Africans, they are not corona people. A young one saying they are here to see the buses. Let me speak to the mom, the sister or whoever. Why are you here?
I've come here to come and see the people from South Africa to come back from China.
Why is it important to see them?
It's important. It's important for the virus that we have to see what's happening.
Okay. Sir, why are you here?
I'm just here to see my brothers and sisters because they are our brothers and sisters, and we welcome them back and we say good luck for them.
And you too, what do you think about them coming back? How should we treat them as our compatriots?
No, we have to treat them with respect because we don't know if they have viruses or not. But we wish that they don't have a virus yet.
But the minister has made it clear, and the president of the Republic, Ntate Cyril Ramaphosa, that they don't have a virus.
O raro e le jwalo re a leboga ka ge e le gore le nna re re safe rena re eme moki re no tla ro ba bona fela ka ge e le gore bona di mapodisa le ma security a eme moka a thibela gore ska feta jwale re eme di gore ba fete re kgone go feta le nna re ya gae.
He's saying he's happy because the president has given an assurance that these are healthy South Africans. The minister did the same, and they are happy that they are South Africans. They are coming back home. And you, ma'am?
Well, we were actually on our way to attend the wedding, but we've been redirected. In any event, we know that the buses will be passing through here. We hope that all South Africans that landed safely from China back into South Africa in Polokwane, where they will be for 21 days quarantined at the ranch. All of the best for them. We are praying that nothing goes wrong, that they will all be negative, and that within 21 days or in a month's time, they'll all be back to their families, their loved ones, which I know for a fact they would love to see very soon. So all of the best to them.
What's your message to South Africans who are very critical about government's decision to evacuate these South Africans? What's your message to South Africans who are saying they are bringing the diseases and the virus?
South Africa, they're not bringing any diseases. We are all South Africans, and this could have happened in any country throughout the world. It's just that it happened in China, and we've got South Africans there. We have to stand with them. We have to welcome them back into South Africa. They're just ordinary citizens, ordinary South Africans just like us. All they need now is our love and attention, and we just have to wait for the 21 days. Welcome, guys, back to South Africa.
And you, sir?
Yes, as my wife indicated, we're actually on our way to a wedding, but I must just mention that, yes, we are very proud of Limpopo and the leadership who took a decision to bring them to our province. I know also that one province declined, and I must say, no, we are proud of Limpopo and we are ready to support these people.
We have a unitary state. We have one South Africa. What's your message to South Africans who are saying Limpopo is a dumping site?
No, I don't really think we're a dumping site. I think it was a good gesture from the Limpopo government, and I think the people of Limpopo should just be educated about what's actually happening on the ground.
Do you think enough education was done? I know it was a short space of time in terms of them making all these arrangements and the logistics, taking into consideration you're dealing with a different country with different set of rules. You have to respect the rules of China bringing them here. You're also dealing with the defense, and we know that South African National Defense Force has a way of dealing with issues, military precision.
No, I think we should rest assured, and even though it was a short time that we are busy with the corona, I think we are well educated by now, and the President and even the Minister of Health gave the assurance that these people did not test positive for the virus. So we should rest assured, really.
Thank you so much. You can see there South Africans waiting to see the buses. South Africans very positive, saying that we must accept them. They are our own. They are our compatriots. We shouldn't stigmatize them because they did find themselves in that country. They were there to acquire skills. They were there to work, some of them, and therefore they were not there to commit any crime, or they didn't turn against their country. Some of them, they are coming back with skills that we can use later in the country, particularly those scarce skills, because we know that many thousands and thousands of young South Africans since 1994 through ASGISA and GIPSA, the programs that were earmarked to empower and skilled young South Africans are outside the country. Even now, more are leaving the country with different government exchange programs so that they can acquire skills. We have them in Asia, we have them in Europe, we have them in America. Some of them are on the continent and in the SADC region. And this is the view from people who have gathered here. And like I indicated earlier on, we expect the buses to use this route that is R101. You can see the security is standing by to ensure that nothing happens to them, because there were threats particularly directed at these South Africans, people accusing them, people isolating them, people insulting them. And now they are coming back to the country. Other South Africans are saying, hands off our compatriots.
Well, coming there from Sophie, who's on the R101, seemingly there's now spectator value from the roads with people wanting to see those buses driving past. Let's go now to Criselda Lewis.
Yes, it's fine.
All right, hello to you once again. Desiree, we're still waiting here at the international airport in Polokwane. There was an indication about a few moments ago that the buses would officially leave from here, but they moved from the direction where they were right back into the center of the runway there. It seems perhaps, I think from where we're standing, there might have been some luggage that they still needed to pick up. So we're expecting in the next few moments that the buses that we're going to ferry the South Africans from this airport to the ranch resort, where they'll be quarantined for 21 days, will come out any moment now and head towards the main road, but not too close to where you would have perhaps the central business district. We understand that it might be the R101 for some of you who might have an indication of the geography of this particular area, and it will head towards the ranch resort, which is about 21 kilometers away from here. You'd apologize there a bit, Desiree. We've been trying to get a lot of our equipment up and running again as we're trying to jostle in between the inside of the airport and outside where we are now, stationing ourselves together with other media to ensure that we bring you live that convoy as it leaves. I'm sure it will be any minute now. The buses keep following each other. You would know as well that the South Africans that are on those buses right now, the health department, speaking to them just a few moments ago, quite satisfied that their health condition allows for them to move from this area. I see towards my direction there one of, it looks like the staff or the officials who had been removing the luggage from the aircraft, had gone back to the aircraft and had taken some more luggage to one of those buses. I think one of those buses is carrying the luggage, while the other three has the South Africans who've been repatriated from Wuhan city. Desiree.
Of course, we'll keep you up to date and try to cover every aspect of the arrival of South Africans coming from Wuhan. We showed you earlier when the plane landed and as the occupants of the aircraft alighted and embarked on the buses. And now the buses, 4 buses that we've seen so far, about to embark on the trip on the R101, where our foreign editor Sophie Mokoena is standing by to bring us footage of that journey. as it starts to happen towards the South African quarantine zone in Polokwane, where these returnees will be staying for the next almost 21 days, and will be monitoring that entire process and bring it to you as events unfold with regards to the COVID-19 outbreak, especially with regards to events in South Africa. You're watching The Agenda. Let's take a break.
The buses are moving now?
Yeah. Let me not shake your cam, Chief. Hello? Hello? Hello, Lebu? Lebu? Lebu?
Is your mic on?
Lebu? Lebu?
Mine is on.
Lebu? Hello?
Yeah, wait a sec.
I'm gonna go in there.
Buses have moved now from, well, Desiree, the buses have moved from the center of the runway there and have moved back to this position, which will be their departure point from here. We're expecting any minute now that these buses will move from the Polokwane International Airport and will obviously head towards the Ranch Resort, where you've been crossing to my colleague Sophie Mokwena from. And we're also just waiting here at the moment. I can count about 3 traffic police vehicles in front of the entrance or the exit that will be used by these particular buses. And we've been waiting, I think, now on the runway where the buses are for about, I think I would say about an hour now. But obviously, they need to ensure that all the luggage and all the belongings of these South Africans are on board one of those buses. And at this stage, Desiree, I can certainly tell you what I've heard from some of my colleagues who are on the other side is that there are some roads that have been affected, of course, as a result of the route that this convoy will take. And at this stage, I think about a few moments ago, I also again managed to speak to one of the family members of the South Africans who have now been repatriated, who are back at home, and they're indicating that they're relieved that all of this has now taken place. And just a few moments ago as well, and she's just actually left, I had a word with the MEC of Health here in Limpopo, and you'd know, of course, that this particular province has not recorded thus far a positive case of the coronavirus. And yesterday, the MEC, Poppy Ramathuba, explaining to me that they've also put all systems in place, in particular, once you saw the confirmed number of cases of the coronavirus had increased to 24. It's basically a situation where they've put all the measures in place to ensure that it remains that way. Containment of the virus, of course, itself is extremely important at this stage. So we're waiting again, Desiree, for the next few moments. We'll get an indication just very shortly once these buses move here from this particular airport. So let me ask my colleague Llewellyn if you could perhaps pan towards my right. He's squeezed in between this particular point here, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to. You'll see those police vehicles right in front of us there. That is part of the police contingent that will lead these buses through this particular route here at the airport in Polokwane, the international airport. So it seems like it's all systems go to have them taken to the place where they will spend 21 days at the ranch resort. And at this stage, I can certainly tell you that all the plans have been put in place to ensure that it is a smooth drive from here to that particular location, which, by the way, Desiree, has been under lockdown since yesterday. From about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, the media was not allowed in that particular area after the last briefing that the Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, had given to the media, of course, updating us that there are now 24 cases of the coronavirus in South Africa. We were told to leave that particular area. I must say that the authorities here in Polokwane are working quite well with the media to ensure that we do bring this to the nation. They do understand the role that we have to play here, in that, of course, we were taken to the viewing deck there in order to bring you those live visuals as the aircraft itself was landing. So I also see, you would see there, the men in those white suits, the protective suits. They are still busy at that aircraft. What will happen next? Perhaps that's information we'll get at a later stage about whether that aircraft will be disinfected, how long it will stay here at the Polokwane International Airport is information we will get at a later stage. But I'm hoping in the next few moments we'll be able to bring you those live visuals as this convoy leaves a very scorching hot Polokwane, Desiree. You know, the weather conditions here are not very ones to shy away from the heat. So in the scorching heat, we're really hoping to bring you all these live visuals. Desiree, I understand that you wanted to ask a few questions.
Well, I just imagine, Criselda, you're talking about the weather in a twisted kind of way. That's a good thing, isn't it? Because this virus is said not to thrive in warm conditions.
Well, Desiree, I was a little bit worried in the beginning, a little bit earlier on this morning. There'd quite been showers here in Polokwane, and I was really wondering how we were going to perform this task. But the sun all of a sudden is really out, and we are expecting this convoy to move any time soon from now. Let's go to my colleague Sophie Mukwena, who's at the ranch where these buses will be headed to. We'll cross to you again, Desiree, once this convoy gets going.
All right, she's not quite at the ranch yet, but let's cross to Sophie Mukwena.
Yeah.
You see?
All right, Sophie Mukwena, the last time we spoke to her was on the R101, just waiting to try and follow the trip by the buses. But as you just heard from Criselda, the buses have not quite yet left the Gateway International Airport in Polokwane. I imagine all efforts being put in place to ensure safety as the transportation of all those South Africans who've just returned from Wuhan in China. They've landed this morning. We brought you all of that, the landing, the disembarkment from the aircraft, getting into the bus. Criselda saying there that from a distance she could tell that the occupants of the bus were not sitting next to one another. So I suppose one of those protocols in relation to distances amongst people. I think we're ready to go to Sophie now. Sophie, what's the latest on your side?
Yeah, we are still here at R101. We're waiting for the buses to come through. But we have more people coming, people who want to see and they want to speak to us. Me utlile mona o no utlile mona o apero ya lefung empa o nkile qeto ya hore o tlo ema mona o shebelle ebe ho tla ha maAfrika borwa ana ka hara naha haholoholo ka hara province ya lona re tlameile ho etsa jwang jwale ka maAfrika borwa
re tlameile rena mo re tlile o letela dibase tse di fetang di rwele batho ba o tshwara ke bolwetse ba corona
ha ke lokise mo ha ba ya tshwarwa ke bolwetse ba corona President Zweli Mkhize letona la bophelo ebile ile doctor le mme wa mona hae e leng doctor ya shebanang le tsa bophelo ba re boleletse hore batho bana ha ba ya tshwarwa ke bohloko hobane bane ba kwalletswe ba hlokometswe re tlameile ba bua le bona jwang
go bua le bona ke re bua le bona re ba encourage hore ntwa wa e hone ka se fihle ka mo South Africa.
The thing that I've observed, Desiree, is that a lot of education is needed to educate South Africans about these compatriots because some believe that they do have a virus. Let me speak to another guest. What's your view? Re tlameile ba sheba jwang batho ba?
Re tlameile ba sheba jwale ka batho jwale ka rena. Ka baka la gore ba re file dikeletso mo le mola gore ge bolwetse bo ke ra go ikwadika tsa bolwetse bo o direng o tlhape matsogo ka sesepa o se wa itshwara sefatlhego gantši
na ibe mohlomong batho ba bophelo bo botle mo Afrika borwa ba etsa mosebetsi wa bona ho le tsebisa hore le tlameile ho etsa eng jwale ka Afrika borwa ho itshireletsa na mmuso o sebetsa ka matla ho le ruta ka bohloko bo
mmuso ona ba re ruta ka mogare ga di-television re a bona mo di-radiong re a ba utlwa ga bantse ba re bolella ba re dire so
batho ba bang ba dumela hore batho bana bana le bohloko empa mo president wa naha Ntate Ramaphosa le letona la bophelo bo botle Dr Zweli Mkhize ebile ile ngaka le mme wa hae mona eo ile ngaka ba buile hore batho bana ha bana bohloko ba mpa ba nka fela tsela ya ho etsa hore ba ikgotsofatse hobane kwa China bane ba hlokometswe hantle re tlameile hore rona re etse jwang ka Afrika borwa ha re ba bona
re tlameile ba tshwara jwale ka bana ba borena re se ke re ba nyenya re ba amogele
There you have it, Desiree. She is saying that we must take care of our compatriots. We mustn't isolate them or put stigma on them because they come from China and that they are our own, emphasizing that in terms of broadcasters and other media houses, they have learned a lot what this virus is all about, the basics they know, and also admitting that government is doing enough to teach them about the virus. Over to you, Desiree.
Thanks a lot, Sophie, on that update. We also have live footage of the transportation. The buses are already on the road en route to the ranch. 4 buses carrying almost 140 South Africans who've just returned from Wuhan, China. Emphasis put on the fact that all of these returnees are healthy South Africans. Not a single one of them has been affected by the coronavirus. This is in an attempt to ensure that everyone is safe and healthy. Let's go back to Criselda.
Akirki Wano, one must be in front of you. All right, these are live pictures, Desiree, as Hambalindo.
Get in between. Go.
All right, these are live pictures as we leave the Polokwane International Airport and the buses that are being used to ferry the South Africans who were evacuated from the Wuhan city in China, finally making their way to the ranch resort where they will be quarantined for 21 days.
We don't know where we are going.
All right, we're just about exiting the international airport at the moment, so we're hoping that police will be able to lead the direction for us here at the moment. They were kind enough, Desiree, to allow us in front of this convoy, so we're able to bring you this I would honestly describe it as a momentous occasion. And, you know, I must say we have been reiterating, Desiree, that this sort of reminds us of a time where South Africa had to repatriate bodies from Nigeria. And recall at the time, those were obviously South Africans who had departed, but very different in this particular aspect where you have South Africans who have been at the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, who are now touching down on South African soil, and for a precautionary measure they are being quarantined for 21 days at the ranch resort here just a few kilometers outside outside Polokwane. So you'll see where we're sitting here at the moment, moving with this. We're trying to hold on as much as possible. So you'll see towards that direction my colleague Llewellyn Carstens there bringing us these live visuals. You'd see three police vehicles, in fact, leading that convoy, and the buses, of course, right there at the back. I managed to just catch a glimpse there of the citizens who are on those buses, obviously looking in awe as the media is here to capture this particular moment. So Desiree, live pictures. If you've just joined us here on the channel, these are live pictures from outside now the Polokwane International Airport, where we are now headed to the ranch resort. And remember, Desiree, that zone has a complete lockout, and we are not going to be able at all to move anywhere from where we have been. This particular road itself is going to be closed. I'm going to ask my colleague to slow down there a bit so that we don't lose this convoy. And you would see this road where we are, Desiree, is the one, the R101 here in, there you have it, the bus is now making that turn just at the back of us. And it will be about, say, I think 21 kilometers before we reach that final destination. And I know that at that particular spot, you have the military health service that is waiting there, as well as other officials from the South African National Defence Force. And remember the staff as well, very important. The Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, had also had a discussion with the staff there about what their participation would be in all of this. So they seemed to have been allayed in terms of their fears on exactly what their participation would be. They asked questions about their health, if they at a later stage felt ill, what role government will play pertaining to ensuring their safety in the first instance. They will also wear protective gear at the ranch resort. So at this time, I think they're quite satisfied with the information that they've been given by government about how safe exactly they will be at the ranch resort. All right, you can stay on our visuals here as we proceed. All right, Desiree, I will allow you some engagement with me as the wind is quite strong here at the moment.
Griselda, Sophie has taken some time to engage with citizens in Limpopo about their feelings about this arrival and the quarantine zone being located in their province. What sense have you gotten since you got there? imagine from the strength of the wind, as she just indicated, Griselda is not able to hear us clearly at the moment. But there you have it, albeit a bit shaky, but those are live visuals coming to you from the R101 en route to the ranch, the South African quarantine zone for these over 140 South Africans arriving in South Africa this morning around 10 a.m. from Wuhan City in China, now arriving in South Africa for a 21-day quarantine period. As Griselda indicated earlier, some families had already called her to say they were quite relieved that their family members had already made their way to that country, but that arrival, of course, not much celebrated because they will not be seeing them for the next 21 days. Griselda, just give us a sense of how the people in Limpopo are feeling about this arrival, if you've had any opportunity to interact with them.
Desiree, thank you very much for coming back to us. Thank you very much, Desiree, for coming back to us as we try to stay with the convoy here on the N1 now as we head towards the ranch resort, moving quite fast in front of the convoy, of course, which is ferrying these South Africans to their 21-day quarantine spot. And you forgive me from where I am at the moment, Desiree, at the back of this particular vehicle, where you would know there was so much anticipation over the past couple of weeks, where many were asking questions about when exactly the South Africans will be coming back. They are here now. We're just well ahead of the convoy now. Just bear with us as they try to catch up with us. We're trying to stay ahead of the traffic at the moment. But what I can certainly tell you is that when they arrive at that destination, there's enough military health service that is on waiting for them there, and they will go through the necessary screening procedures. And once that happens, they will need to satisfy themselves once again, now that the South Africans have arrived on home soil, that they are well. There are a series of screening processes once again, which I understand will take place. And I know for a fact at this point that South Africa still has its eyes set on this particular project. What will be very interesting to note, Desiree, is that while the Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, meets with some members of the church to allay their fears over the arrival of these South Africans from Wuhan City, you would see right there, let me just break that, Desiree, some of the traffic being brought to a standstill there on the other side to allow for our convoy to pass through here. And you'd see there the police from here in the traffic police here in Limpopo have stopped that traffic to allow for this convoy to go through at this point. You'd see right there. That way. That way. All right. All right, Desiree, we're just going to head towards another direction at the moment because they seem to be deviating towards another location. Now we're going to ask our colleague Llewellyn Costons. As you can see, here you have those buses now moving towards that direction. Desiree, I'm hoping you're still able to hear me. We'll just move much closer to them there. All right, we're going to try and get move once again. There you have it. You see, every single one of them is wearing protective gear in that particular bus. The officials that were also dealing with these South Africans when they arrived are also now wearing protective gear. This is the closest, Desiree, that we have been to the actual buses, where you will see that every single one of those South Africans who was evacuated has protective gear on them. They are wearing those, white coats, the protective gear, as well as some of those masks, every single one of them that is on those buses. We're going to try and get ahead of this pack once again, Desiree, just to bear with us, but I'm sure you can still see our visuals from where we are. And I would imagine perhaps now we would be about, say, 15 minutes away from our final destination, and we'll try to get ahead of this team. We'll try to get ahead of this team right now, and we're hoping that the police would obviously be able to give us some leeway on this quite difficult, Desiree, to broadcast from where we are here at the moment. But what I can certainly tell you is that we are well on our way now to the ranch resort, where the South Africans will be quarantined for the next 21 days. So Desiree, lots of traffic.
There's no point.
All right, Desiree, we're going to come back to you very shortly. We'll stay on those visuals. You'll still see the convoy just ahead of us and those buses. So we will continue to stay live on these visuals.
Well, there you have it. You can count on Criselda Lewis at any time to bring you that story, and I'm sure you will agree with me that she made all efforts possible. We're following those 4 buses ferrying the Wuhan returnees, just returned, touched down in South Africa at the Gateway International Airport in Polokwane around 10 a.m. this morning. Several protocols taken to ensure that everything is done according to script in terms of the disembarkment from the plane into the buses. Criselda Lewis reporting earlier that from a glance she could tell that even in the buses, the people, the occupants, were sitting quite a distance from one another, especially because all of the occupants at this stage are confirmed to be COVID-19 negative. So none of the occupants have been affected, and I imagine you want to keep it that way. They will be kept at the ranch for the next 21 days while they're being monitored in terms of symptoms, as health officials and the Department of Health has repeatedly indicated that the virus incubates for about 10 days before symptoms start to present. Therefore, these returnees from Wuhan, South Africans returning from Wuhan, different ones left for different reasons, some to study, others for work opportunities, now having to return home as the whole world observes protocols that are being followed in relation to COVID-19, with over 137,000 cases now having been registered worldwide. Growing drastic measures being put in place to avoid further infections, especially as we're starting to hear from China that the infections are starting to taper down. That's the big story here in South Africa today. South Africans returning from Wuhan. We're following that journey. Our colleagues Sophie Mukwena, foreign editor here at the SABC, and Criselda Lewis bringing us that story. Let's go back to Criselda now. Criselda, what's the latest?
All right, Desiree, I think we're about perhaps 10 minutes away now from our final destination, which of course is the Ranch Resort. You would see a large police contingent here escorting this convoy. This part of the road has been closed. We're going to try and get you much closer to where we had initially been. Obviously, right now we're trying to maneuver between some of these police vehicles here and of course the rest of the convoy that is accompanying these South Africans to the quarantine zone for 21 days. Let me just describe to you a bit the Ranch Resort there, Desiree. There are about over 100 rooms there which will accommodate them, and previously at that location, Desiree, I have stayed at the Ranch Resort before. Quite comfortable, spacious, and what would seem to be what the health minister described as the best suitable place for these South Africans to stay. At this stage, that particular place is under lockdown. The military is in complete control of that particular area. You would have the police, the military inside and in the parameter around that resort, which is quite a number of hectares. You will have the South African Police Service. When we had arrived in Polokwane just earlier on this week, there had already been a roadblock there and a lot of checks that were taking place, a lot of asking about where we were going, what we were there to do. But fortunately at the time, the media had been invited to a press briefing by the Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, and that's when we were given a bit of a leeway inside the Ranch Resort to see exactly what it looks like. So very strict protocol there. You aren't able to go through any of that particular area without indicating. I mean, some of the staff, according to my knowledge, Desiree, I know that some of the staff have been asked to sign confidentiality agreements. I think what they're trying to mitigate is any leak of information. Not that there's anything to hide, but of course the central point of communication about what is taking place, I guess the Interministerial Committee as well as the Health Department and everyone concerned with this evacuation in government would want to ensure that there's a centralization of information about exactly what is taking place. You'd see here the traffic also brought to a standstill here towards my left, Desiree, and that obviously indicating that there's a part that has a route that has been set aside for this particular convoy, so that there is very little interruption between here and the place where we need to go. So we're going to try and get to the other side of this convoy, and both these lanes here obviously are closed at this stage, and it will be reopened obviously once we pass. So with the police of course are trying to ensure that we're also try to do our best here to try and get the best coverage to you there, Desiree. It's exceptionally difficult on this part that we're traveling here at the moment because you have the police that are here in front of us. They're just doing their jobs, of course, and we're trying to get right back to the front once again to see if we're able to bring you much clearer visuals on that. So a mammoth task that we're also embarking on here, Desiree, bringing you, of course, live visuals of this convoy of the South Africans who were repatriated from Wuhan city in China, headed to the quarantine zone for 21 days as part of a precautionary measure announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Desiree, you'd recall when President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the commander-in-chief, had basically seen off the team that was going to Wuhan city. They indicated these were volunteers and men and women who had come forward, who said they want to be part of the team who is going to go and fetch these South Africans despite the circumstances, despite the multiple risks they were the ones who put themselves forward and said that they were the ones who were going to participate in this task. Desiree, maybe I could slip in a bit of a joke there. I heard one of the media colleagues earlier this week say perhaps those men and women who went to Wuhan City deserve a national order. So for the patriotic duty that they have embarked on, they too, of course, will receive care going forward because, of course, they've gone to an area where they, of course, were put at great risk, but a great risk to go and pick up more than 120 South Africans, more than 120 South Africans, and of course that then gives you an indication of perhaps the kind of duty that these men and women had to embark on. So we're still live here now, perhaps Desiree, I would say about 5 to 7 minutes away from our intended destination at the ranch itself, where of course we will not be allowed. And I'm sure as we head towards that destination, I think I heard my colleague Sophie Mokoena indicate that there are some areas around there where the media is not allowed. So I would presume we'll be pushed back quite far from where exactly they are. The media won't be allowed anywhere near that. And obviously as the media we've got to respect that, because you'd know the entire area itself is under lockdown and is under military control. So we've got to respect that protocol as well. So all the reports, I guess, that we'll give you after they then go through those gates at the ranch resort would be quite far away from the resort itself. But live pictures once again, the convoy much in front of us there. We'll try to get to the front as much as possible. Here again you will see on the side towards my right hand side, Desiree, again coming across another roadblock here to ensure that there is a smooth movement of this convoy right here. The traffic brought to a standstill here towards my right until this convoy manages to pass through this particular area. So you would see also some of the traffic officials. They've got protective gear on as well. I hope you managed to get that as we passed through there. And Desiree, at this point, I think a sense of pride, definitely from the part of those who had managed this evacuation process, and a sense of hope from the families of those whose loved ones are here, and a sense of relief from the South Africans who are now back at home. And I'm sure we're going to hear many stories over the next couple of weeks, of course, after that 21 days, about the experience that they had in those countries. I heard yesterday, while I was speaking to the MEC of Health here in Limpopo, Poppy Ramatuba, she indicated that, those who were basically saying that these South Africans, should not be allowed back into the country, we must recall that some of these South African students are in those countries to acquire skills that this country needs. So to shut them out and to leave them there while there have been widespread calls for them to be brought back to the country, government saying that would be unfair, and to demonstrate the highest level of patriotism and care for its citizens, the best thing to do would be to go and evacuate them in Wuhan City. So about, I think, close to about 80 of them, Desiree, I stand to be corrected in terms of those numbers. I certainly do know that those were some students who were at the university in Hubei province, and they had been under lockdown there for over a month. And while I was having conversations with them over that period as SABC News, they were indicating the hardship that they had been through during that entire period, and all they simply wanted to do was to come home. They just needed to be back on South South African soil to ensure that it doesn't matter what happens, they are able to be with their loved ones and ensure that whatever care and perhaps health care that they need, they will be able to be given that by the South African government. But we must reiterate once again, Desiree, that government has consistently pointed out that all these South Africans who are now en route in those buses to the ranch resort are individuals who government is happy with in terms of their health status, and that none of them are ill at this time. So right now, Desiree, we're headed towards, we're on one of the main highways here, the main freeways, as we head towards the ranch resort. Counting the police convoy, I would say perhaps now there are about maybe 14 vehicles, police vehicles that are here, plus minus. My corrections might not be 100% correct. All right, Desiree, we're going to give it a breather for a second. Stay on our visuals, and we'll come back to you very shortly.
We come out of that conversation with Criselda Lewis, who is tracking the 4 buses that are transporting South Africans who returned from Wuhan City this morning. A big conversation in South Africa. The minister in the presidency, Jackson Mthembu, during the week following the cabinet Lekgotla, urging South Africans not to try and go to the quarantine site, saying it will defeat the purpose of isolating South African citizens. Let's go live now to our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, who is on the R101. Sophie?
Okay.
5 minutes.
Well, thank you so much, Desiree. Yes, we are still here at R101 waiting for the buses to pass here. But with me, I have the MEC of Health, Dr. Poppy Ramathuba, who is going to speak to us about what's going to happen at the ranch, but generally the issues here in Limpopo where people have raised concerns around the communication. MEC, the day has arrived. Any minute from now, we'll see those 4 buses. How do you feel? Are you still nervous?
Of course, we can never say we are not nervous. We'll remain nervous until after 21 days. What we want to emphasize here is to say there should not be a confusion to say people of Limpopo are not friendly people. We are welcoming all of them. They are our brothers, they are our sisters, they are our children. They deserve to be in their country, in their mother country, which is South Africa, and Limpopo is part of South Africa. We had all those questions that, as you have indicated, ministers were here through the week. They've clarified the issues of communications has been clarified. Everybody now it's rallying behind this project, and we are saying they've already landed, as you've indicated. They are in transit to the Ranch Hotel. From the next today up to the next 21 days, they will be citizens of this province. The Premier has already pronounced on that matter to say we'll be working together with our national minister to make sure that this quarantine becomes an incident-free.
As a clinician, you know needs to happen when they arrive there.
I think what people must really appreciate is that quarantine is just to isolate you, to say, look, you are not sick now. You don't have any flu-like symptoms. You have not tested positive for corona, but we want to take precautionary measure. We know that the incubation period of this virus can take up to 14 days. So give us that 14 days so that this virus can show up itself. Because if we allow you to go and it starts showing itself when you are home, you might have by that time contacted other people. So what will happen is they are going to be checked in their own rooms.
Can you move out of the shot? I can see the convoy is about to come, but we can continue with our discussion.
So we are saying they are going to be placed in those rooms. They will be checked in their rooms when they arrive. They are going to be read the riot acts, the do's and the don'ts when you are being isolated, how they must conduct themselves so that none of them, if there's anyone who is infected, must not infect any of those ones who are not. So we have gone through also the issues that we were concerned about, the staff debriefing, the training of the staff. Yesterday we did all that with the minister and all the the concerns that the staff had, Minister did address all those. So we think now we are ready. Everybody is ready, and we know we are praying. Nothing wrong must happen, because these are our people. We must remember that if the Chinese people can take care of our own, who are we not to take care of our own?
MEC, you have a number of compatriots who accompanied them. They went there. The Defence Force, Health and others, particularly SAA, the pilots. Your message to those volunteers?
For us as a, I mean, honestly, as a citizen, firstly as a citizen, I must say we are really touched to say you've got those citizens, those South Africans who are indeed patriots, who understand the spirit Satumamina, that when the president, when our commander-in-chief says, looking for someone to send, and they voluntarily stand up and say we are going. So we are saying really those are South Africans that must be celebrated. Not only them, even the staff at the ranch, those who are there, who will be looking after them throughout these 21 days. We must also, credit must also go to them. It's not an easy task. If someone who is in Guyana is worried about corona at the ranch, but somebody says, I will be there, I'm going to sit with this person and all fly all the way from China to here.
MEC, here are the buses. Here are our compatriots arriving. Precautionary measures, you can see they are there, they are waving, they are happy, they are very happy. Welcome home.
I'm so excited that you can see here are Limpopo people, ordinary citizens are waving, they are welcoming them home. So it means that indeed, the spirit of Ubuntu in Limpopo does exist. We're saying to all of them, welcome home, welcome to the People's Garden of Eden. That is Limpopo for you.
I can see you are very emotional.
Yes, I am emotional. This has been a difficult time for all of us. This is a test. If we are able to go through this, we'll through any other challenges that face us. But what I've realized is that we've received messages from across. It's not only the negative messages, but messages of support from others in other provinces. So we are saying to the people of Limpopo, to the people of South Africa, we are emotional, honestly. I can be honest with you. This is an emotional. Also at the same time, Sophie, me and you are mothers, me and you are parents. What is going through the minds of the parents of their children when they have been quarantined far away from home? But you can see, even if they are quarantined here in Limpopo, someone who is in Free State or KZN, the parent who is there, will be definitely worried. But that's why we want to reassure them that your children are now at home. They are back in Muzanzi. They will be taken care of. And after 21 days, you will be able to see your children.
MEC, let's talk about coronavirus. As a country, what must we do to minimize the risk?
I think as the message from the minister and also the interministerial committee, that really we have got now to step up our game. In the first, when we started, we were talking about someone who has visited China or the Hubei, the Wuhan city, which is the epicenter, and today we are talking about our own people in South Africa who have been infected. Today we are talking about the epicenter having shifted from China now to Europe, and we are saying how many of our citizens are in those countries, how many are passing our OR Tambo airport. Some even deviate, don't come through their regular flight. You have to change to try to bypass the system. I'm saying to South Africans, let's be patriot. Let's protect ourselves, our families, our loved one. If I know myself that I'm from Italy, when I land in OR Tambo, I've got to go and self-isolate, even if at the airport I'm told I do not have any symptom. If we can do, because the 24 cases that we have, all of them are coming from majority from European countries and the US, not coming from China. So we have been focusing on China, like you can see what we're doing. Our focus has been on China. We must change. The focus cannot be on China. When you see a Chinese, don't see coronavirus, because I've been dealing with situation where people are even discriminating when they see people. So we are saying, let's change and up our games. But the basics, hygiene, that we need to look into. The washing of hands in such a manner until people think you have got obsessive disorder, because you are always washing your hands just with water and soap. It will definitely go a long way.
South Africans, indeed, our compatriots are back in the country. They will undergo those processes. And I'm still with the MEC trying to make sense of this as a person who's very experienced in this issue. But MEC, how do we ensure that when people are being tested, we give the process chance so that those who are in a know-how can pronounce before we can talk about stigma? What must we do? The issue.
Yeah, I think what we need to first appreciate is that the center currently it's holding, and we must keep it in that way, that it is only the Minister of Health who can pronounce. Before, even if a case is from Limpopo or my province, I must allow that process of the minister to pronounce, because if we centralize it, we will be able to deal with everybody just pronouncing. Because some people even say, I was in Chirizini hospital, I was tested for corona. The testing is not done in Chirizini. The testing, we are centralizing it. Now the minister is working on finding a way on decentralizing, but still, even if it's being decentralized, let the center hold. But then the next thing is this one of discriminating. To say, look, before you start discriminating another person, what about yourself? Because you are not immune, you are a human being. You know, this is one, I'm talking to you right now. If I can be infected, as I'm talking now, because I'm emotional, my droplets from my mouth are spitting on you. And even sometimes you can go and scratch and they...
So we should be wearing masks?
No, we are not saying everybody, we have not reached the stage where everybody must wear mask. I'm just saying to those who are discriminating others, just because now you have got these buses, we have got these 114 that we know have been in a corona endemic area, but they've not tested positive. We're discriminating them. I might be a carrier, I might still be in my incubation period, but you me and be next to me. So this is one condition which does not discriminate. We have had prime ministers, heads of states are now testing positive. We have had ministers of health in the first world, UK with its own national health system, Iran. We've heard of that. So
Canada.
So who,
Mexico.
Exactly. So this is something that is affecting all of us. So I don't see a reason why should you start to discriminate another person. Let our energy, let our data that we have here in South Africa be used to spreading the message to say, how do we prevent and protect each other from getting this infection?
MEC, we seems to be focusing on China, as you have said, but we have countries, particularly in Europe, where we have number of South Africans, professionals and those who are there for training. Are we dropping the ball?
I think we need to be really honest. I was talking to one cousin of mine. He's currently in Netherlands now, asking me, what about him? I said, you must come and follow those strict measures. We need to isolate you when you come home. I'm not going to be closer to you. You might not be coming from China, but as long as you have been in Europe, as there's one who's coming from Germany, I'm saying, look, it's all about to say you have been in contact with someone who is still in incubation period. We don't know that. So when you arrive at home, we must do the self-isolation. So the message that we are trying to emphasize is to say the focus can't be in China anymore. We shouldn't be like that only. Let's deal with all those other. The WHO continue to update us to say now in Iran, this is what is currently happening. Now in Italy, this is currently what is happening. But unfortunately, our people are still so obsessed with China. Is it so easy to target China? That's why while we're busy, focused and so obsessed with that, that's in through.
I heard that some people are using other routes to get into South Africa.
That is possible. That is possible that they could be doing that. But our interministerial team, I can reassure you, they are on top of this game.
Is our intelligence up to the task?
I'm telling you, I trust my South African government. I trust the cabinet of President Matamela. They are on top of the game. They are busy in all the meetings that they have. We have a minister who is always updating us as his MECs. So time and again, he will be updating to say, there is this threat, there is that threat, this is how you must work on that. So I'm really convinced that we will beat this as South Africans.
And finally, Minister, MEC, your message. Ho batho ba Limpopo Moshate.
Batho ba rena ba Limpopo rena re a tsebahala re le batho ba lerato, batho ba botho, batho ba o rata batho. Ha o ka tsena ka motseng wa kong wa mo Limpopo ba o tlhabela kgogo ba o yapeela yona le maotwana le mala yona ba re je o le tre o e fetse. Mamtla rena le bana ba borena ba o tswa di province tša o fapafapana ba tlile mo lefilong la rena la the ranch re a ba amogela ka gore ke maloloko a rena ka re ka rushaka rwa shura batho ba shwa Limpopo rena re batho ba rufuno re batho ba ufuna batho hezwi zwa usa funana ne batho ba re batho ba ngwali re bana ba mudzimu wa xingwali vana va xi vo swika va bva kha mavundu o fambana nawo ri do va tanganedza maḓuvha 21 a dawo va do va ve vana vaxo hi ku ka n'wina vana va Limpopo kulu va ngungunyana hi vanhu va rirhandzu
va sikhukhuni
hi rhandza vanhu hi rhandza vanhu vatukulu va ngungunyani va sikhukhune va makhado hina rirhandzu vanhu lavawani va huma ka ti-province ta ku hambahambana masiku laya ya 21 va ta va ri vana va hina a hi va amukeli ti-system ti kona ta ku va nga mixani na n'wina vanhu van'wanyana se all we are saying is that we are the people of love.
Thank you so much, MEC. That was the MEC of Health here in the province. I can tell you a number of South Africans. You know, if you were to look around here at the Shell garage, you know, people are beginning to converge here. It speaks to the spirit of the Limpopo people, the spirit of love. Khotso, Pulanala, Moshate. Back to you, Desiree.
Thanks, Sophie. It's a big story that we've been covering this entire morning, the return of South Africans from Wuhan. That's it from me, and Flo Letwaba takes over from here. Flo?
All right, thank you very much, Des. All right, I'll be with you then until 3 p.m. then this afternoon. So, of course, the agenda does indeed continue. What exactly is happening? I do see that you're just standing behind some police vans here. Heavy security, of course, no doubt, to protect, of course, those students who are coming from Wuhan. But what can you tell us? What new information do you have for us at this point?
All right, welcome back once again to the final area where the media is being allowed at this point. I'm going to ask my colleague Llewellyn Carstens just to walk with me just a little bit, just to show you the police contingent that is here. I think I can count about close to 10 to 14 police vehicles here at this stage that were accompanying, of course, the buses that were ferrying the South Africans to the ranch where they will be quarantined for 21 days. The media, of course, not being allowed allowed beyond this point at this stage, and I'm told that they are just waiting for the South Africans to get settled inside the ranch before they're allowing us to get towards, I guess, the gates of this particular place. But I can certainly tell you the task that South Africa had set its sights on in terms of completion, this is complete now. The next phase, of course, will allow for the Interministerial Committee, together with the Health Department as well as the South African National Defence Force, who of course have locked down this area here behind me, for them to ensure now that those South Africans are tested over the next 21 days to obviously make sure that their health condition, or they did not pick up symptoms of the coronavirus here towards. I don't think they'll be too happy about me showing them on the screen at this point, but these are the men in blue who have been part of this operation. You would see largely towards right there in front of me. This is the road that leads to the ranch, so the media have been kept quite far away from that at this point. So in fact, just a few seconds ago, I received an SMS from one of the South Africans who's on board that bus, and basically sending those emoticons of crying, which means that they are very excited to be in the country at this point. I know that SABC News will be chatting to some of the families of those who have returned here to South Africa today. You can stay tuned for that, but we're going to let you go right now, and we'll bring you updates later on here on SABC News. But this is the final mark for the media at this time, just a few kilometers away from the ranch itself, where at this moment now you will have those South Africans who have been evacuated from Wuhan, who are going to be settled now at the area, the quarantine zone, where they will be for 21 days. I'm going to hand it back to studio for now, and we'll cross to you much later in later bulletins. Stay tuned to SABC News for much more reaction on this moment.
All right, thank you very much indeed to Griselda Lewis. We're going to cross, of course, to Sophie Mokoena, who's with her in Limpopo, just stationed somewhere different, of course. Sophie, of course, as I mentioned earlier on, was with some residents of Polokwane there in Limpopo, and of course they seem to be quite jovial about the fact that our South Africans are back home from Wuhan in China. And of course you would have heard there from Griselda Lewis the fact that there is quite a heavy police presence and police guards, so that no one can really go in and out of the ranch, where of course the students will be based, and of course those in SANDF members that had gone to go and fetch them in Wuhan, China. So that is where they are at the moment, and as you can see, it doesn't seem as though there's anything to fear in terms of the virus spreading from that point. There is a very, very huge police presence there, and it doesn't seem as though anybody can go in and out around the ranch area there. Let's cross over then to Sophie Mokoena and just catch up with her as well, just to find out what's happening where she is. Sophie, what are the people that you're with in Polokwane they're saying about the fact that there is that arrival now of those students from Wuhan in China? I see that the mood is somewhat, I suppose, happy in terms of the fact that, the students are back from Wuhan.
Typical of South Africans, at crunch time, they rally behind each other or the country flag or their own compatriots. When the buses were passing here, it was jubilations and people were greeting them, waving. As you can see, I just want to move out of the shot. You still have those South Africans standing here, and some of them, I spoke to them earlier on, and they were happy, and they were saying that they don't have a problem. These are our compatriots, these are South Africans, these are fellow countrymen and women, young in particular. I don't know, maybe some of them, they want to say something. Tate, how do you feel they are here?
Yes, at first they were very churile because we just said people are coming here, but now after hearing that they don't have coronavirus, so at least it gave us that thing, or at least we are safe. And I think even the measures got the range, their safety measures to say that our people in Polokwane will not be at risk.
Yes, ma'am. And you, how do you feel? There was that feeling that perhaps they are a health risk, but the president did emphasize, and the Minister of Health, who is a doctor, and you also have an MEC, she is a doctor.
Yes, at first actually Okay, it means they're bringing the virus more Polokwane. But now after I saw the press conference on Thursday, they made it clear that these people, they are not affected actually. They don't have the virus. They were tested negative. So after that, at least okay, it means South Africa is safe. China straight to their homes. It's a way we're safe. So when they keep them there, we are happy because it means we're safe. If one is tested positive, yes, that person will be taken care of. So as long as they are far away from us, we are happy about that.
The other issue that came out, people talking about majority are from Free State, they must go to Free State, some must go to Gauteng. South Africa is a unitary state. It's one state. It's one government with different provinces. How do we deal with the issue of divisions, tribalism?
I think South Africa must just understand that if there is something like this, only one province or one place must be nominated to host this. So we as citizens of Polokwane, yes, we were afraid, but now we are happy because it means Limpopo won't be taken so low or for granted. It means Limpopo and our MEC, they are able actually, other than the other provinces. So we are happy about this.
One country, one South Africa. Let me speak to others. They have their cell phones here. It looks like they are also covering the news.
Ke dutse 2 hours ago.
Hobaneng?
Ba tswaletse tsela santse ke fete.
Empa wa tseba hore ke maAfrika Borwa a neng a sebetsa a kena sekolo China a khutlile hae ho ba le bona ke bona ba hae mo re tlameile ho ba tshwara jwang.
Re santse re ba tshwara ga botse go bana ke bana ba rena.
And you are here, you work here, you witness all the drama since people coming in and out. As a South African, how do you feel? What must we do?
We feel very, very, very happy. We accept them. As long as the MSC has just tell us that they are tested negative, we're fine. We welcome them.
And you, sir, I can see you are a journalist. You're having your cell phone.
Yes, I am happy. It shows very well that we have got a caring government. Some other countries, they did nothing to go and take their citizens from the country which is affected by the coronavirus.
Thank you so much. There you have it, Flo, South Africans saying that they are happy. The mood has completely changed, and typical South Africans. Time they rally behind each other and they work together to show or demonstrate a spirit of solidarity, evoking Madiba spirits of oneness. And I think this is what's prevailing here. But of course, the government must make sure that they educate the nation. They must communicate, proper communication, and this must be done in their respective languages, because then they will understand and grasp the message better. The press conferences, perhaps, they should be conducted in our own language so that people can really understand what's happening and follow the message. Our president can speak so many languages. It is for that reason many people do understand or follow what he's doing. I think that should be the spirit. Ordinary masses, ordinary people must get proper information, and they can rely on SABC for that. Back to you, Flo.
All right, no doubt about that, Sophie, right? And indeed, we will be keeping you updated throughout the day on what's happening in Polokwane in Limpopo. And as you can see, very capable reporters we've got there stationed for you. Sophie Mukwena there, Criselda Lewis there. So no doubt we'll keep you up to date with what's happening. But after the break, of course, we want to look at other parts of the world in terms of what's happening there with the coronavirus. There is an update coming from other parts of Africa at this point. So do stay tuned to SABC News.